Thanks for watching. I'm Eleanor Drage, and I'm a Christina Gore Postdoctoral Associate in Gender and Technology at the University of Cambridge. I'm going to give a brief overview of my paper, Querying Categorisations in AI for Talent Acquisition, in which I discuss how radical critiques of categorisations and classifications from gender studies and critical race theory can interrogate some of the claims made by recruitment AI companies about how their tools help mitigate bias. I argue that querying discriminatory classification processes involves being attentive to how difference is produced through AI hiring tools, rather than making often futile attempts to remove difference altogether. Recruitment AI stakeholders that are invested in shifting power in recruitment can use this wealth of actionable knowledge from queer and anti-racist theory to help make their products fairer. We're seeing a huge demand among HR practitioners for software that reduces agency spend and cuts down the pool of applicants that require human attention. However, recruitment stakeholders often have quite a limited understanding of how these tools work. In the paper, I discuss the limitations of how anti-bias measures in AI for hiring treat categorizations like race and gender, as well as personality categories used in Big Five psychological assessments. My querying of how value-laden, commercially validated personality categories are ascribed to candidates during the AI hiring process draws on philosopher and gender theorist Judith Butler, here on the right, and Karen Barad, a feminist physicist, on the left. Bell Hooks, a critical race scholar, and Cheryl E. Harris. Noreen Giffney and Michael O'Rourke, the editors of the Ashgate Companion to Queer Theory. Cultural theorists Stuart Hall and Sylvia Winter, and Black feminist scholar Hortense Spillers. I draw on their work in order to determine how social norms are cited through the algorithmic determination of personality categories in hiring contexts. I firstly look at Sensia, a hiring software that attempts to resolve bias issues by stripping gender and race from its interface and backend, before looking at how video and transcription analysis AI technology from My Interview, Retorio, and HireView claim to reduce bias through personality assessments. While these kinds of technologies that interrogate the visual are more widely criticized for being forms of surveillance and profiling, other forms of classification are also deeply harmful when misused and imbricated in histories of gender and racial violence. So I offer a reminder that scientific racism was practiced for the purpose of hiring in the 20th century, when Catherine Blackford outlined a character analysis for human resources based on looking at images of applicants. Critics such as John West and Alexander Todorov have argued that this was essentially a combination of phrenology and eugenics, and have drawn links between what we consider to be an employable subject today and much longer histories of racist pseudoscience. The key issue here is a misunderstanding of what race and gender are and how they're constituted in the form of categorical attributes within hiring software. This misunderstanding underlies attempts to solve issues of bias in hiring tools and limits their effectiveness. So Sensia, for example, is an AI-powered talent intelligence platform that aims to strip bias from the recruitment process by building in what it calls an anonymous mode into the platform. It claims, and I quote, that this removes bias identifiers like gender, ethnicity, age, race, and sexual orientation from a candidate's profile or resume. So their implicit claim here is that personhood can be separated out from gendered and racialized traits because gender and race are layers of dehumanization that are merely overlaid onto bodies which are supposedly, underneath it all, just human. So what does this mean then for Sensia's claim to strip race from a system, to remove difference? Can difference be removed in the attempt to transfigure all candidates into supposedly neutral data points? Would this actually constitute a fairer system? Or should we be thinking instead about how people experience systems of race and gender in hiring processes? How, for example, are value-laden personality traits racialized and gendered? So we need a different understanding of how recruitment AI figures within systems of race and gender through their construction of ideal candidate profiles. Queer and anti-racist studies have a very good understanding of how normative universal modes of representation operate and can help inform recruitment AI design and deployment as it navigates issues of discrimination through categorization. Thanks for listening.